Let me say something that might sting a little. Your goals don't make you uncomfortable because they're honest. They're probably fantasy. And fantasy doesn't build careers. It doesn't build businesses. It doesn't build bodies, marriages, or bank accounts. This podcast is called Built, Not Wished for a reason. Because wishing feels good. Building requires truth. Welcome back to Built Not Wished, the show about doing the work, telling the truth, and building things that last. I'm Dave McKee. If you've listened to the inaugural episode, you already know what this podcast stands for: competence over hype, discipline over dopamine, and reality over motivational posters. Today we're talking about goal setting, but not the Instagram version. We're talking about real goals. Goals grounded in data, goals grounded in your actual current condition, goals that move your life forward instead of stroking your ego. You know, the lie we've been sold about goals, somewhere along the way, goal setting got hijacked. It became about declaring things instead of building toward them. I'm going to be a millionaire next year. I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 60 days. I'm going to start a business and quit my job by summer. Here's the hard question. Based on what? If you're not making six figures today, why is your next goal $1 million? If you haven't gone to the gym in 3 years, why is your goal a marathon? And if you can't manage your calendar, why is your goal to run a company? That's not ambition. That's avoidance. Because fantasy goals let you skip the uncomfortable part. The honest assessment of where you actually are. You know, in manufacturing, in lean, in real problem solving, nothing starts with a goal. Everything starts with a current state. Before you improve anything, you answer one question. What actually is happening right now? Not what you feel is happening, not what you hope is happening. What does the data say? You know, cycle time, defect rate, throughput, downtime. Numbers don't care about your intentions. They just tell the truth. Your work and your life, it all works the same way. So what's your income? What's your debt? What are your health metrics? What is your skill level? What's your time usage? And if you won't measure it, you don't want it to improve. You know, I've realized something, and I've asked myself this question: why we overrate ourselves? Most people think they're doing pretty good, that they are better than they actually are. That's not a moral failure. It's human nature, actually, I believe. So we compare our best intentions to other people's visible outcomes. I've heard it all. I've said it. I work hard. I'm pretty disciplined. I know my stuff. But when you put numbers next to those statements, things change fast. How many hours did you actually work last week? How many of those hours created value? How much money did you save? How many days did you train? How many problems did you actually solve? I mean, reality is humbling. And humility is a starting point of progress. I want to talk about value add. What value add really means and why it should drive your goals. Before we talk about A3s, and we will be talking about A3s, we need to talk about something most people think they understand but don't. Value add. In manufacturing, value add has a very specific meaning. It's not effort. It's not busyness. It's not how tired you are at the end of the day. Value add is any activity the customer is willing to pay for because it changes the product in a meaningful way. If the customer wouldn't pay for it, it's not a value add. Everything else is either necessary but non-value added, or it's pure waste. When you get into lean and you get into TPM, Toyota Production Systems, you'll learn some things. So that definition about value add is kind of ruthless. And so it leads you to say, well, what are the wastes? Well, there are 7 deadly wastes. So you have the waste of overproduction, or excessive inventory, or conveyance, or motion, scrap and rework, waiting time, or overprocessing. Overproduction, what does that really mean? That means producing too much or producing too soon. So if you're producing too soon, it's going to be sitting there and it becomes that other waste, which is inventory, right? Because excess inventory is more than the minimum required. Then you have one of the other 7 deadly wastes is conveyance. Any non-essential transport beyond the minimum required. We have scrap and rework. Obviously, any repair to your product to make it sellable, or if you scrap it or rework it, is waste. Then you can have excessive motion, any motion that does not add value. So if you're stacking and restacking and stacking and restacking, that doesn't necessarily add value to your product. Waiting time. Waiting on parts or waiting for a machine to finish cycles, etc. And overprocessing. And I could tell you a story about every one of these in the 40 years I've worked in industry and still work in industry in manufacturing. I got stories about every one of these. But I'll be candid. It's hard doing a training class with a bunch of workers from the floor, and I have a bunch of mobile equipment operators sitting in the training, and I say, you know what? A 7 deadly waste is conveyance, moving product from one work cell to another. That's waste. It's necessary, but it's waste. The customer is not willing to pay me because of the way we have our shop set up. That's a hard sell sometimes. The overprocessing, I'm going to be honest with you. We made things that we had to, I'm not going to get into my business, but We have a lot of welders, and we have weld prints, and we have to the welders read the weld prints, and then they have to weld these steel items together. And this one welder is looking at this, and he's like, well, okay, this needs a 3.5-inch weld here, and it needs a 3.5-inch weld here, and it needs 2 more over here on this other end. Instead of doing that, I'm going to make a 9-inch weld along all of it, because it looks better. It was never caught because the first article inspections were pencil whipped. It was never caught inside the plant, got shipped to the customer with a lot of the same product. And the customer calls it, hey, these are all wrong. We only got a few of these that are right. What do you mean they're wrong? Well, these welds, we got some of them, those welds all the way down this side and all the way down that side. All these others, they have gaps in the welds. Well, the gaps in the weld were actually engineered in what was called for by the engineering. The one welder who welded all those parts with one continuous weld on each side overprocessed. That was most embarrassing, to have to contend with the customer that way. And I'm not saying that this is licensed to make you lazy, but are you doing a lot more than you have to get the job done, to get paid, to create that value add? Here's a hard question. What do you add value to? Let's bring this out of the factory or out of the plant and into your life. At work, value add looks like this: solving problems others can't, reducing cost, time, or risks, increasing quality or throughput, teaching other skills that multiply results. Not meetings, not emails, not looking busy. Okay, here's, if your role disappeared tomorrow, what measurable problem would stop getting solved? And that answer tells you exactly where your value lives. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people spend the majority of their time not adding value. They're reacting. They're maintaining. They're staying safe. And then they wonder why their income, influence, and opportunities don't grow. You have to understand value add. Why does value add must come before goals? If your goals aren't tied to increasing value add, they're just wishes with deadlines. Want to make more money? Then the real goal isn't the money. The real goal is increasing the amount of value you create, or increasing the difficulty of problems that you can solve. Income is a lagging indicator. Value add is a leading indicator. And that's why saying, I want a raise, is useless. A real goal sounds like this: I will reduce changeovers by 20%. I will eliminate recurring defect. I will become proficient in a skill my team currently outsources. Those are value-added goals. And notice something important. They're measurable. Here's a simple test you can start using immediately. Ask yourself at the end of each week, what did I do this week that clearly added value? If you can't point to it with data or outcomes, that week didn't move you forward, no matter how busy it felt. And this filter also exposes fake goals. If your goal doesn't increase capabilities, capacity, quality, speed, reliability, then it probably doesn't matter. And here's the good news. Small increases in value add compound fast. When you consistently solve slightly harder problems, you become trusted, you become visible, you become necessary. That's how careers are built. Not with big declarations, with quiet, measurable increases in value delivered. I want to jump to something called A3 Thinking, the Life Edition. Let me bring this home with you, something practical. In lean manufacturing, one of the most powerful tools we have is the A3. It's simple. It fits on one page and it forces clarity. If you don't know what an A3 is, Google it, so you have an idea of what understand what I'm talking about. And here's how it works. And yes, this applies to your life. Step 1, current state. Write it down with data. That data can be income, your weight, sleep, skills, time allocation. No excuses, no stories, just facts. Step 2 is your problem statement. I want more. That's not the problem statement. But I earn $78,000 a year. I want to reach $100,000. But I have not increased my skill or responsibility in 3 years. See, that's a problem statement you can work with. Step number 3, the future state of the goal. Not fantasy, not ego, a reachable next state. If you're at 78, the goal is $1 million. The goal is 90,000. Then 100,000. Built, not wished. Step 4, countermeasures. What skills must be developed, or what habits must change, or what problem must be solved? This is where the work lives. And then in number 5, or step 5, is the follow-up. Because if you don't review it, it's not a goal, it's a thought. And here's the truth said plainly. Most people don't fail because their goals are too small. They fail because their goals are disconnected from reality. They skip steps. They avoid measurement. They confuse motivation with progress. And when reality pushes back, they quit. But if you're willing to be honest, brutally, calmly, respectfully honest, you become dangerous in the best way. Because now you can actually improve. Here's your assignment before the next episode. Take one area of your life, career, health, finances. Write a one-page A3, current state with data, one clear problem, one realistic next goal. Not where you want to end up, where you need to go next. That's how real builders think. The show isn't here to hype you up. It's here to help you build. And building starts with truth. So if this episode's challenged you, good. That means it's working. Next time, we'll talk about execution, why most plans fail, and how disciplined follow through separates professionals from talkers. Until then, be honest, be measured, be relentless, because nothing meaningful is wished into existence. It's built.